Hey everybody, today we're going to be coloring the super cute Stampin' Bella image called Paige and Peggy Pour Some Tea. Isn't it cute? I will put a link down in the description box to the card kit and all the supplies I used if you would like to come over and check that out. Also make sure to check out the clearance section. There's always a bunch of stuff in there. I would love to have you come shopping with me. If you have a question, always leave me a comment and I will get back to you. And it would be great if you could hit the like button if you like the video so I know to make more of these images. And if you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and do that so you'll get a notice when new videos pop up. So I've already stamped my image on Neenah 80-pound Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So let's color. So let's start out by outlining our image with B'0". So I'm just going to go, let's start here at the girl's leg here. And I'm just going to go around her cute little skirt, and under her chair. And I'm not being very careful. I'm okay if I get some on the girl or on her chair. And I'm going to actually color in this little section of chair right there. And we're going to go up here and around her hair. And we just want to work our way back around to the other side. And she's got a little space right here between her arm and her body that I'm going to color in because that's background. And same down here between her skirt. She's got a little bit of background showing there. Yeah, we'll just work our way down. Let's see what we got going here. She's got some pretty small areas there, so you got to kind of watch it. I'm going to go around all these cute little cupcakes. And back up here around the teapot. And she's got a little dab of color right there between her finger that I'm going to color in. And let's color in this little space. And then we're going to go up here around some of these curls. I'm going to kind of dip in there because when I color it in you won't see it anyway, so I'll get a little bit inside of her hairline there. And then we're going to come back down around this way, around that cute little bird. And we're going to go back down around to the other side of our table. And let's see, let's do a little bit on here. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's hop down here and do the grass next. And for that, we're going to use YG 67, 63, and 61. I'm going to start with my YG 67. And I'm just going to use the grass that's already here as my starting point. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of color underneath each of those little swatches of grass. Try not to color her leg. Whoops, like I just did right there. And let's switch this way this time so we don't get it on her leg there. Let's see if I can get some of that off of her leg with my colorless blender before I go anymore. Okay, then I'm going to go with YG 63 next, and I just want to add some color over the top of the color I just laid down. So we're just going back across. I'll be a little bit more careful on next to her leg this time. next I'm going to go with YG61. And we're going to go right next to the shoe here. And then I'm just going to go over both of those colors I already laid down. And you can go as far out as you wanted. Same for over here. I'm going to get next to her foot so I don't accidentally draw on her shoe. And go this side. Now I'm going to go back again with my YG67 and add a little bit more of my shadow back in. I think I'll bring some of this color down here and kind of gank it a little bit more. Have some more lines and definition in here. And it's still looking a little light, so I'm going to go with YG63 and add a little bit more lines in with that color. And I think I might, well, no, let's add a little bit more down here. I'm just going to leave it like that for right now. So next, let's go in here and work on her skin. And for that, we're going to use E11, E00, BV quadruple 0, and for her cheeks, I'm going to use R20. So I'm going to start with my E11 first, and I'm going to add a little bit of shadow. So let's go ahead and start with this girl on the right. And I'm going to go right above her shoe, and she's got really skinny legs. So I'm just going to do a very tip of my pen. And let me come down from this way because I can draw a little bit better going down one. And I'm just going to barely do the edge there. And then same for this shoe. You want to go down the back side of her leg. And let's do this leg over here, the other side. And I'm going to actually add a little bit of this right next to her ruffle on her skirt. And then I'm going to take my E00 and I'm just going to fill it in since they're so skinny. I just filled up cute little legs in. I got little stick legs, so they're kind of hard to get too much color on. Okay, and then we're going to hop up here and we'll do her arm. So again, I'm going to grab E11. And let's do, right here, she's got a little bit of her back showing on her dress. I'm going to do right next to her dress. And then I'm going to come down the back of this arm. And I'm going to do the bottom of this hand and again the bottom of her arm. And over here, she's got a little bit of her inside arm showing, so I'm going to get that. And then let's do her hand just a little bit. And then do this side of her arm. And then for her dress up here, I'm going to go around this little ruffle she's got going. And she's got some collarbone there that I'm going to show. And her neck. And then for her face, I'm going to go underneath of her bangs and around where her hair touches over here. Then I'm going to go with my E00 again, and I'm going to fill that in the rest of my white space. And you have to just use the tip of your pen because she's got really dinky arms. So we're just going to fill that in her little dinky neck. face, we're going to fill this in. Like that. And then for my shadow, I'm going to take my BV 000 and I'm going to do just a little bit up here where I added my E11. So I'm going to go underneath of her hairline and back over here to this little curly Q. And then I'm just going to leave that. And then for cheeks, I'm going to use R20. I'm just going to do a couple little circles. And then I'm just going to take my E000 or my 00 and just lightly go over the bottom of her face here, just to soften those cheeks just a little bit. Then let's hop over here and do the left side girl. So again, I'm going to start with my E11. And I'm going to lay down some shadow, so let's go right along the back of her leg. And under her dress a little bit. Same for this side. Let's go under that dress. And we'll do the back of her leg. Like that. And then we'll go up here and we'll get her arms. So let's do the back of, let's see here. Let's do the back of this arm. And again, they're really dinky, so you gotta be careful. This cute little arm over here, and her hand a little bit, and her neck, her collarbone, and then right next to her dress. And then for her face, I'm going to do up here again underneath of her, down to her neck, but underneath of her bangs or her hair. And then I'm going to grab my E00. I'm going to go down here and do her legs. So I'm just going to fill those in. And then I come up here and do her hand, and her arms. And I did get a little bit in the background there because her arms are pretty small. But that's alright, I'm not worried about that. Up here on her face. And if you get a little bit in her hair, that's okay because we're going to color a really dark color, so we'll color it in. And then again for her shadow, I'm going to take my BV 000 and I'm just going to do a little bit right next to where her hair touches her face. Since I didn't use so many colors, I'm using that to give it a shadow. And then I'm going to take R20 to give her some cheeks. And then my E00 just to go over those cheeks a little bit, to soften them a little bit. Let's work on the straight girl's hair next. So for that, we're going to use E49, E47, E44, and E43. And I'm going to start with my E47. So I won't put so much. E49 is really dark, and I only want to use a little bit, so I'm going to use that last. So we're going to start with E47, and we're going to add in where we want to have some shadow. So let's go down here on this little curly Q, and I'm just using barely the tip of my pin because I don't want to get too much. She doesn't have much hair showing, so I just want to add a little bit of shadow without overwhelming it. And she does have a hairband in there, so you want to be careful with that. And I'm going to go right around the edge of this flower a little bit. And I think I'll add a little bit more down here, just a tad. Okay, and then for over here, I'm going to go to the end of this curly Q, and I want to do a little bit of shadow on the edges of her hair. And on the other side of this headband, and then where her part is. I think I'll do a little bit on this side right here too, where this hair, her bangs are coming out. Then I'm going to go with E44 next, and we're just going to add some more color in. Go right along that last color. I'm touching down on top of the E47 so that I can soften that edge a little bit. And next I'm going to go with E43 to fill it in, and you can leave some white in there too if you like that look. I can just never get it to look right for me, so I'm going to fill it all the way in. And then I'm going to go back with my E49 and just add a little bit of shadows in. So I'm going to go down the center of this part, maybe a little bit around the edges of this flower. Not too much, just a little dab, because it's pretty dark. Let's hop over here and do the curly hair now. So for her hair, we're going to use E18, E19, E15, and E11. I'm going to start with my E18, and I'm just going to go over over the little squiggly lines. So I'm just going to take my pen, and I don't even care if I'm on the line. I'm just going to make some more squiggles in here, right kind of on the top of it. They don't have to be perfect. Just adding some color. And she does have a flower in her hair. Kind of go around that. And I'm just barely touching the tip of my pen down on the paper, because I don't want the ink to like spread and make a big old blob. Okay, so I went over all the lines sort of. Next I'm going to go with my E19, and this time I'm going to go right next to the last squiggles I put down. And you can go over the top a little bit. I'm just filling in some of that space. They do not have to be perfect. We're just going along, adding some color in here with some squiggly lines. Okay, that went. I think I'll add a little bit more up here over this. I missed a couple squiggles up there. Next, we're going to go with E18. Same thing. I'm just going to add some more color in here. So I'm going to pick some spaces where I didn't have some color before. There's some white area. Still going over some of the color I already laid down. And lastly, I'm going to take my E11, and just fill in those extra spaces of white that I have showing. I'm kind of going over all the colors I already laid down. So I kind of squish them all together. Closer to her bangs there. Now we are going to work on our yellow areas, which is this girl's shirt, her shoes over here, and then this headband and this girl's hair. And for that we're going to use Y26, Y23, and Y21. And I'm going to start with my girl's dress over here with Y26. So let's go ahead and just give it a little bit of an outline right next to her arm and along the top of the bodice, like that. And then let's go down here. We're going to add some shadows next to her arm. And then I'm going to go underneath of this little wrinkle she's got for her chest. And I'm also going to give a little bump right here where she would have an indentation where she has a little space there. And then I'm going to continue my outline down the back of her dress, over to the ruffle. I want to go underneath of her arm, and let's go down this ruffle a little bit, like that. And then for the ruffle, I'm going to just pick some of these inner circles or the inner squiggles, I guess we'll call them. And I'm just going to go over some of those and add some dark color on there, kind of like her hair. And I don't care that that's not perfect, they're not right on the line. I'm just adding a little bit of shadow in there. Okay, I'm liking that. So now let's go ahead with Y23. So I'm going to touch down on top of the last color. And I'm just going to kind of dab it, soften that edge. Same for this side. We want to give it a little dab. Come up here, soften that edge a little bit. And I'm going to go around this ruffle. And then for her skirt down here, I'm going to add some more color. So let's go ahead and go along the edge of some of these other little squiggles. And maybe a little bit up here. And I think I got a couple of extra little, this dark color in here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of swoosh over that just to soften a little bit. And then I'm going to go with Y21 to fill in the dress. Go up here. And we'll just go down here and fill in this bottom section. Alright, I think I'll add a little bit more up here. Maybe go over the skirt just a little bit more. I want it to look kind of, I want to still be able to see the lines, but I need to soften it just a little bit more. Okay, I'm liking that, so I'm going to leave that. So now I'm going to go over here and let's do the headband on this girl's hair. So I'm going to grab Y26. I'm going to give each little section, each side, right next to the flower and the edge of her headband, a little dab of color. And I'm going to go with Y23. And we're going to go over the 26 and then add out here into the white. And I'm going to fill it in with Y21. Nothing fancy, it's kind of little. And then for this girl's shoes down here, I'm just going to take my Y23 because they're kind of small, and I'm just going to fill them in. Like that. Next, let's work on the red stuff. For that, we're going to use R24, R08, R05, and R02. So we're going to do this girl's shoes, both flowers in their hair, this girl's dress, and then a couple of doilies on our plate over here. So I'm going to start with this girl's shoes, and I'm going to take R08, and I'm just going to color them in. Nothing fancy. And she actually has flowers on her shoes that I never did color, so if you want to color those a color, you can. I just kind of left them white. The parts I didn't accidentally get color on. But that's all I did for her little cute little shoes there. And then for this doilies up here, I'm going to use R05 and R02. So I'm going to grab R05 first, and I'm going to go around the bottom of this cake. And then down here on my muffins, I'm going to go around the wrappers. And then I'm going to fill it in with the R02. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to get some extra color on my table here. That. Okay, so let's go up here and do her flowers next. Let's go do this girl's flower. So I'm going to start with R24, and I'm just going to dab some color at the end of my pen around the center there. And then I'm going to grab R08. Same thing. I'm just going to use the end of my pen and dab it up and down and add a little bit of color. R05. And then R02 to go over the entire thing and smush out all the colors and blend them together. And then later I put some stickles on there to make it sparkly. Same for this flower. I'm going to start with my R24 and add some little dots in there. R08. R05. If you wanted it to be lighter, put less dots. And this is R02, just to blend the whole thing together. Like that. That leaves us with this pretty girl's dress. So I'm going to start with my R24 for my shadows. And let's start down here on the skirt first. So the skirt, again, like the other skirt, I just went in here and where she's got these little ruffles, I went in and just kind of went over the top of the little squiggles. And there was no rhyme or reason, and I don't really care if it's on the line. I'm just adding some interest. And then for her dress up here, let's do a little bit along this line and along her arm. I try not to color her arm. If you get red on there, that's never going to come off. We'll go down the back of this arm. And I'm going to kind of go around here and kind of make a little swirl next to where some of this ruffle is. I'm going to go down the back of her dress too. Then I'm going to go with my R08. And I'm going to start up here and soften a little bit of that edge. And then for the ruffle, I'm going to go in here and just add some more color. Not necessarily on top of the last color. Maybe pick some of these other little ruffles and add a little bit of our color in there. Next I'm going to go with R05. And again, we'll add some more color in our ruffle here. And I'm not being too particular, I'm just putting some color down. And you can do it however you would like. And I think I'll actually fill in this section here on her dress. And then I'm going to go with my R02. And I'm just going to fill it all the way in. Go up here and fill in some of this dress. But I'm still going to go over this part of my dress that I already colored. So I want to blend those colors together. And then we'll get down here on her ruffle. See if we can fill some of this white space in. Like this. And then I think that's a little too much contrast. So I'm going to, for me anyway, so I'm going to take my R05 and my R02, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my R05 and my R02. And I'm going to go in here and do a little bit of color over the top of some of this light area. I don't really like it that light. So we're going to add a little bit of this dark in here. soften that a little bit more. And if you like it that way, you just leave it like that. That's perfect. I'm just thinking it needs a little bit more color for me. We're just going to add a little bit more in here. Okay, I'm liking that better, so I think I'll leave it like that. So I think next I will go and color this little bear, and for that I'm going to use E77, E74, and E71. I'm going to start with E77. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer here. E77, and I'm going to add a little bit of color. So let's do a little dab of color right here on the edges of his ear, and let's do right here on the edge of this ear. So I left the inside of his ear, but I'm going right close to it. And let's go around the edge of his face. And then we're going to get his foot a little bit. He's got a little bit of his arm showing there, so I'm going to a little dab there. And same for this side. There's his arm. And he's got his foot that goes around this cake. And let's see, he's got a little wrinkle right here, so I'm going to color that. And I'm going to go around the inside of his belly over here. Looks pretty good. I'm going to go with E74 next. I'm going to dab a little bit on the edges of that last color to soften it up a little bit. And I'm literally just taking the end of my pen and kind of daubing it up and down. A little bit of color here around this little wrinkle he's got there. And then I'm going to take my E71 and fill it in. And I tried not to go over the inside of his ear because we're going to color that pink. That. And then I'm going to take R20 and go do the insides of his ear and his nose. Let's do the teacups, the saucers, and the little teapot next. And for that, we're going to use BV23, BV20, and C00. So I'm going to take my BV20 first, and I'm going to go right along the edge of my little teapot. Add a little bit of color. And for this teacup down here, let's go right along the edge of the saucer. And they're really small, so you got to be kind of careful. And for this teapot, I'm going to do this side. Then I'm going to grab BV20. And I didn't bother with the handles since they're so small. I just left them. Add a little bit more color onto this. And then I took my C00 and I went over just the entire thing. So let's work on the cupcake and this cake down here. For that, I'm going to use E74, Y23, and R02. So I'm going to take my E74 and I'm going to color these wrappers on my cupcakes. And I didn't do anything fancy because everything is so small on here that I just used the tip of my pen and I'm going to color it in like that. And then for the frosting, I'm going to go with Y23. And I'm also going to use this over here on my cake. And then I didn't want the frosting on my cupcakes to be so yellow next to this dress, so I took a little bit of my R02 and just kind of swirled it a little bit on the top. I didn't necessarily cover up all the yellow, but I just gave it a little dab of color. And then this cake over here has frosting on it that I just left white. Let's hop over here and do this cute little bird next. And for that, I'm going to use BG 13 and 11. So I'm going to start with my BG 13, and I'm just going to very carefully with the tip of my pen, because remember, everything's super small, and just go along the edge of his ruffles there, maybe dab on his face. And then I'm going to just go over the top with my BG 11. And then this girl over here, I noticed she's got a couple little leaves in her hair next to this flower. I'm going to take YG 63 and fill those in. I forgot to do those when I was coloring that little flower. That. Alright, so that leaves us with this pretty little tablecloth right here, and for that I'm going to use BG 11, BG 10, C00, my colorless blender, C1, and then for the ruffle I'm going to use E44, E43, and E42. So I'm going to start with BG 11, and I'm just going to go in where I would want to have some darker areas. So I'm going to go right along the edge of these cups. And she's got a little space right there that was showing, so I just covered that in. Go around these doilies, over here by the girl, and I'm going to come back around where there's this little line, little circle right there, and cover that. And then I want to go down the edge of my ruffle, and I'm going to go underneath the lip of the table. And maybe do a little bit next to, and since we're going to color the ruffle brown, I'm not worried if I get a little bit onto my ruffle. Okay, that looks pretty good. Next I'm going to go with BG 10, and I just want to go over that color just a little bit, soften the edges. Like that. Next I go with C00, and I'm just going to fill the whole area in. I think I'll actually take a little bit of my BG 10 and lightly brush over this center section right here. I don't want it to be quite so white right there. I'll take my C00 again and go over that. And then I took my colorless blender and just went over the entire thing and squished it all together. Technical term. That's what I call it, squishing it. And then I wanted to add a little bit more shadow, so I'm going to take my C1 and I'm just going to go add where I want it to be even darker. So I'll go maybe around some of these little spaces up here, and this little swirls on the table, underneath this little lip on the table a little bit, and then let's do a little bit down here next to the ruffle. Okay, and I'm liking that, so I'm going to leave that. For the ruffle, I'm going to start with E44, and I'm just going to go and add a little bit of color right next to the edge of the tablecloth, underneath some of these little swirly bumps that it's got going here. And then I'm going to grab E43 and soften the edge, so I'm touching down on top of my E44. And then I'm going to fill it in with E42. That. And then later I took my Stickle Stardust and added some glitter on there. So there is our beautiful Paige and Peggy Pour Some Tea all colored up. Don't they look fabulous? And then again, here is the finished card. And on my card I added some Stickle Stardust to the center of these flowers, to the ruffle on the tablecloth, forgot what it was there. And then I took some Spick of Glitter Pen in clear, and I added it to the swirls on the dress down here on the ruffle. And then I also took my quickie glue pen and I did some dots of glue out here on the outside, and I sprinkled some glitter out there and then shook it off so it'd have some sparkles out there when you move the card around. So I hope you had fun coloring with me today. If you have a question, go ahead and leave me a comment and I will get back to you. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.